The small car market is one of the biggest segments for new car sales in Australia, but when you think of small cars, you probably think of hatchbacks. Those models do make up the vast majority of sales, but vehicles like this, the Mazda 3 sedan, also offer some appeal to buyers. Let's find out what that appeal is. There's a practicality problem when it comes to sedans. You're limited to what you can fit in by the size of the opening. In a hatchback, it's easy to fit bigger, awkward items in because of the size of the tailgate. However, sedans generally have more boot space than their hatchback siblings. So, putting regular items like this pram in is easy, particularly because the Mazda 3 sedan has 100 litres more space than the hatchback. You can fit bigger items like push bikes by lowering the seats, but even then, you're limited to what you can fit in by the size of the porthole behind the seats. The back seat of the Mazda 3 sedan is not all that different to the hatchback, and there's adequate but not exceptional amounts of space for adults. And you do lack rear seat air vents, which could be an issue for travel sick kids. However, you do get dual ISOFIX child seat anchor points and 3 top tether points as well. The touring model we have here is towards the middle of the Mazda 3 range in terms of price, but you'd be forgiven for thinking that you were driving the top spec model. There's leather trim with red stitching pretty much all around the cabin, and you've got a dash-top media system with satellite navigation and a reverse view camera. On top of that, you've got things like dual zone climate control, push button start, and the full complement of airbags. So it looks great in here, but it also feels good too. These seats offer good adjustment and good comfort, and everything in the cabin feels of a high quality. A highlight of the Mazda range is that infotainment system, MZD Connect, which features a touchscreen up here when you're sitting still, but it's also got this brilliantly intuitive rotary dial controller when you're on the move. It stacks up well in terms of the interior then, but let's hit the road and see if the drive experience also fares that well. Now, I said before that it feels like a top spec Mazda 3, and it is if you're buying the 2-litre entry-level engine. The Skyactiv unit is available teamed to a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic as tested here. The auto adds $2,000 to the price, which means this car is $26,790 plus on road costs. The big thing with these new generation Mazda engines is that they achieve excellent fuel use without going down the turbocharging path. On test, we've seen fuel use of about 7 litres per 100 Ks, which is pretty impressive. The downside is that the engine feels like it's a little bit sluggish, particularly down below 2000 RPM where there's a bit of a dead spot. That's not the case in the slightly dearer SP25, which has a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder with 21% more power and 25% more torque. The gearbox always tries to go for the highest gear, so that means it can hunt between gears, as you can probably hear, as you go up hills or even just as you're applying throttle. You'll often find that because it feels so sluggish, you're putting down more throttle pressure than you might expect you have to. No matter which Mazda 3 you choose though, the drive experience will be pretty much on point. The Japanese brand's engineers are all about making their cars fun to drive, and the 3, even as a sedan, certainly lives up to that. The ride is on the firm side, which means it feels quite assured of itself on the road, but you do notice a lot of the smaller bumps being transmitted into the cabin. The compliance is pretty good. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's crashing over bumps, but it is a little bit firm. The steering's more involving than some of the competitors in the class, and it's accurate through corners as well, but we have noticed that it can be annoyingly heavy at times. And while Mazda has improved markedly with its noise, vibration and harshness over the years, it's still quite noisy in the Mazda 3. There's a lot of road noise, particularly on coarse chip surfaces, and the engine can be loud too. If you're in the market for a small sedan, you could do a lot worse than the Mazda 3. In touring specification, it offers a lot of the good stuff you'd want at a very impressive price. However, we'd be more tempted by the SP25, which is just a little bit more expensive, but offers a much more effortless drive experience.